Alright guys, I'm installing this airbag control unit in my GC8 today. This is my 1998 2.5 RS coupe, as you can see. And this car from the previous owner had this airbag control unit and all the wiring harness and the sensors stripped out of it because he was actually turning this car into a race car. So in today's video, I'm going to be installing this ECU for the airbag control unit. I'll be installing all the harness components and I'll walk you guys through how you route the harness, how you install the ECU, and where you mount the sensors on the front of the car.
This is my little SubaruONLY shop. It's a DIY Subaru channel. It's a channel where all I do is Subaru builds and race Subaru vehicles and motorsport events. It's a DIY themed channel where I walk you guys through the steps to get your Subarus back on the road and hopefully do a little racing of your own. So thanks for checking out the video, guys. I really appreciate it.
Okay guys, and as you can see, I actually have my whole center dash removed. That obviously makes it a lot easier, and you probably have to do it if you're gonna get this ECU in and all the other components. This yellow wiring sheath is what identifies the airbag control wiring and the wiring harness components. So this is all the airbag control wiring harness. As you can see, it clips in right here. This is underneath that passenger compartment for that passenger airbag. So that's the clip right there for the passenger airbag. And then of course, there's another section that goes through the front fender wheel well up to the front of the bumper area where that front sensor is. So basically the way this whole setup works is you have the ECU right here in the middle. The ECU is connected to the sensor on that side and a sensor on that side. And the little wiring harness has little pigtails that run underneath the dash and then over through the fender and then up to that sensor right behind the front bumper. And it has one on this side going up to the front bumper, and then one over here on this side going up to the front bumper as well. And then, of course, you also have to have the airbag control to the ECU for the airbag as well. So this airbag has a little connection that connects to that harness, which is right here. That's this connection. And then, of course, we have an airbag on the driver's wheel as well. That one has a little connection that's gonna be right under here. So you make that connection. And then, of course, the final connection is that airbag ECU has to be powered by the vehicle's power, and it has to talk to the vehicle's ECU. So that plug is actually over here underneath the driver's component. I'm gonna move over here so you can see it. And that's this plug right here. This is that main plug that actually plugs in to the wiring harness for the ECU of the car. And that's this one right here. This is actually what the little plugs look like that goes to the sensors. And actually, these are the little sensors and little sensor plates. These are what the sensors look like. And I'm gonna bolt these right underneath the front left and right side of the bumper. These little plates are what you use to mount it to your frame rails. And then these little sensors will bolt up to those plates on those little studs like that. And then this sensor wiring harness pigtail actually comes down underneath your front fender and into your front cabin compartment. And this little plug right here is what connects to this little plug that connects to the ECU for the airbags. And then of course, the ECU itself actually gets installed kind of right here underneath all of your center console components in the center of the dash. Okay guys, I'm gonna go ahead and bolt this sucker in, connect it to the wiring harness, which is this plug right here. I guess I should point that out also. This is the plug that connects the wiring harness to the airbag ECU. And then after I have this thing bolted in and connected, I'm gonna go ahead and mount the sensors underneath the front bumper. I'll walk you guys through that process, and then we'll route those pigtails through the fender and into the body, and there's a little grommet you gotta get installed correctly right here to seal off the interior cabin from that fender well. I'll show you guys how you install that grommet correctly, and we'll go ahead and connect it to this end of the wiring harness. And that way, we should have both sensors installed. We'll have the passenger airbag and the driver airbag installed and connected to the ECU. And then we'll make that final connection where we connect the airbag ECU to the car's power supply and the car's ECU. Okay guys, this is the bolts that hold this airbag ECU in. These are actually safety security bolts. And that bit right there, that is what they look like. It's a little star bit. It's actually a T40 security bit. It's a little star bit with a little stud in the middle. And that stud in the middle is what makes it a security bit or security little bolt. And this is what one of those little bits look like. It's a T40 security bit. So it has a little hole in the tip right there of the T40 bit. I'll put this guy on my Amazon tools page so you can get this little 3/8 adapter T40 security bit. All right guys, that's what it looks like all installed. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in now. Doesn't really hurt to plug it in. This plug, I think, is the one right here in the middle. Yep. So we'll go ahead and just, I guess I'll flip that back so you can see it a little bit. Okay, so the airbag ECU is installed. It's plugged into that harness. And next thing to do is to install those sensors underneath the right and left side of the front bumper. And then we'll connect those sensor harness pigtails to this main harness pigtail. We'll double check that I have the airbag for the passenger and the airbag for the driver connected. And then I'll connect this main harness to the main harness for the chassis and powered up. And this sucker should be fully installed. Okay guys, to do these front sensors, we're gonna move to the outside of the car, obviously, and that is underneath this front bumper. So I'm thinking the easiest way to install these front crash sensors is gonna be to remove this front bumper, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove my front wheels. So the first thing I'll do with you guys is I'll remove this front bumper. It's a really quick and easy walkthrough. There's actually only 4 bolts in the engine bay you have to remove, and then 1 bolt on each wheel well, and then the front bumper beam and the front bumper skin or bumper cover can be removed in one complete unit. I'll show you in the front here actually what I'm referring to. This bolt right here, and yeah guys, I got some serious rust right here I'm gonna be repairing in a future video. This bolt right here and that bolt right there, these 2 bolts are the bolts that hold the front bumper beam into your front frame rails. So you remove these 2 bolts right here and the same 2 bolts on the other side, and then underneath the fender well in the back here in the wheel well, there's gonna be a bolt right here kind of holding this corner in, or a clip. I'm using a bolt, but a lot of times the factory OEM setup, I believe, is actually a clip. So remove the clip or the bolt that's right here. And then that whole front bumper beam and bumper cover can be removed as one unit. That way we'll have good access to install the plates and those crash sensors for the airbags. Now, of course, you guys might need to unplug these little parking lights or little turn signal lights, but once you get it off, as you can see, the entire bumper beam, and this is that US domestic model bumper beam, so this sucker is super heavy. This entire bumper beam with that front bumper skin can come off as one unit. So set that aside. And that way you have access to the front of your car, and we can install these plates right here real easily, and then run those sensors and run the wiring pigtails up and under this fender well into the cabin and connect it to the rest of the harness and the airbag ECU. All right guys, I got the bumper off and I went ahead and took off the wheel as well. You probably don't need to do this, but I did it so you guys can see a little bit easier where all the holes are in here. For example, where the hole is, which is where we're gonna have to route the pigtail for this sensor. But next, I'm gonna remove these 2 bolts and install this little plate right here. That way, I can install this front sensor onto that plate and then route the wiring into the cabin. Okay, the next thing is to route this harness or this pigtail from the sensor up underneath the wheel well. So I'll kind of zip tie that in later, and then route this little plug end for that sensor into the cabin through that little hole in the rear of your wheel well. This little grommet is what creates a good seal, a good weather-tight, water-resistant seal for this pigtail to route through that wheel well into your cabin. So make sure you get this little grommet and lock it in place so that it creates a nice tight seal. All right, and then when you get the seal, just kind of make sure this little rubber tab is kind of pointed up. It's kind of a little bit of a directional seal because it's kind of at a skewed angle, if you can kind of see it like that. You want it to kind of be in the right orientation. And you should be able to just pop that seal in. It kind of has like a little bit of a V shape to it on the other side. So you can pop it in from this inner wheel well area. It's a little bit dark in here, but you can kind of see that grommet is fully seated. Once you get it in its seat, you'll definitely know it. You can kind of move that wiring around to make sure it's fully seated, but don't skimp out on getting this grommet fully seated. You might struggle with it for a few minutes. It might be a real bitch, but it's worth it to get these grommets seated correctly and sealing the weather out. So take your time, guys. Okay, and then another thing I'll mention is after you kind of route the wiring along the top right here, and you can kind of put that factory clip into that little hole right there. That's kind of where that factory little plastic clip should hold that harness pigtail into a little fender bracket. All right, guys, move back into the inside to the cabin of the car. Kind of snake these little wires out. I've kind of snaked this sensor wire out. So this is that plug for the front sensor behind the bumper on the driver's side. Again, this is a big main harness plug that plugs your airbag ECU into your chassis harness and basically connects it to your car's ECU. And then if you kind of look under here, it's kind of hard to see, but this right here, this is the little plug from the steering wheel airbag. So of course you need to connect your steering wheel airbag, your sensor, and all the remaining plugs. So I'll go ahead and connect those now. And then this airbag ECU, harness, and sensors should be fully installed on this GC. Okay, I've got it all installed, guys. Here's on the passenger side. Here's that front sensor where it connects to the harness right here. Here's that passenger airbag. Here's where it connects to the harness right here. Here, of course, is the airbag ECU installed with those T40 security bolts. And of course, on this side, I've installed the harness. I've connected all the sensors on this side as well, and I'm kind of tucked them up underneath. And on that note, I'm gonna call it a day, guys. Thanks so much for joining me on this next phase of rebuilding this 1998 RS Coupe. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any questions or any comments, please go ahead and leave them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get back to you guys. If you guys need tools or any parts or any maintenance items for your Subaru, make sure you check out my SubaruONLY Amazon page. You can see the link in the description below. Also, if you guys need part numbers for your GC8, I actually updated my website, SubaruONLY.com, and I actually have a page that has a ton of part numbers for our GC8s. So check it out, guys. It's really easy to remember. It's at SubaruONLY.com. Thanks again for checking out the video, guys. I really appreciate it. My name's Luke. You guys are watching the SubaruONLY channel. And until next time, guys, later.